All right, so hey everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today's topic is provide your MFT business with self-service capabilities using Accolm BAM. This is an important reason why BAM exists, actually. Simply put, business users and technical users speak completely different languages and have different schedules and tasks that might make their paths difficult to cross. But the file transfers that we set up, right, they're still going to be running. Because these MFTs are administrative tools, we can't simply grant access to anyone, and business users still need insight on what is happening with their file transfers. BAM's self-service capability will solve this for you. Now, as I just mentioned, if you're unable to stay for the whole webinar, we are recording it so we can share it with you if you like. If you have any questions, please keep them till the end of the session, and we'll get back to you on those. And if there's any thoughts or comments at all afterwards, please send an email to us at sales@accolm.com or contact the person who invited you. So I am Rickard Persson, and I am a technical pre-sales specialist at Accolm. I've been doing this for, I think it's 4 years. Usually I guess I would call myself the demo guy over here. So if you've had a demo before, if you've seen the product before, we might have crossed path. Today's agenda is very simple. It's about Accolm, who we are, about the product, why anyone is looking into the product, the benefits of BAM, BAM use cases, a simple demo walkthrough of BAM, and a QA at the end. All right, so let's see here. Firstly, we are an IT software and services company, and we've been doing this for over 20 years, I believe. I think actually, if I wanted to be really picky, I think it's 21 or even 22 years. And we provide solutions and expertise for Go Anywhere, EFT Diplomat, and Move It. And we have offices in Sweden, the US, Argentina, and Ghana, giving us this sort of global reach for any support errands. And our headquarters is based in Stockholm, Sweden. So Accolm BAM is a web-based tool that complements MFT products by providing visibility, analytics, and notifications, and is useful for both business and technical users. BAM is used by hundreds of customers worldwide, from banks to healthcare, states, teleoperators, I guess, kind of everything, really. If you transfer files, BAM might be useful for you. Now, why BAM? So why do these hundreds of customers use BAM? We saw the need for BAM during our early works with MFTs when we engaged with our different customers. One of the things that we took notice was that customers wanted better visibility and knowledge about their file transfers. And to be honest, I've heard it myself a few times as well, that MFTs are usually black boxes for business people. They have no idea what's happening in there, right? So BAM will sort of help unravel that mystery. It does so by providing self-service capabilities for everyone within the company. If you have an important file transfer, you can use BAM to track that yourself, so you do not have to ask for administrative assistance or access to the MFT interface. So business people would be a lot less dependent on admins and support. And then we have the benefits of using BAM. It reduces costs associated with administration and support, provides self-service capability for everyone, and we have the options to set up alarms for file transfer failures or files stuck in transit. It helps meet SLAs by drastically reducing response times, and it can do so by simply providing you with some sort of heads-up alarm, really. BAM has a very simple way of giving visibility of how the MFT server is being used with our different dashboard widgets and many ways of filtering your transactions. And then the business process feature helps give us, our customers, visibility of their business processes that run on the MFT server. And finally, BAM helps admin and support staff in faster problem detection and resolution. Then we have two use cases that we want to talk about. So we were working quite a lot with one of the largest telecom operators in Sweden even before they acquired BAM, actually. They needed a way for their business units to get better visibility of their business processes. So we introduced BAM to them. By using the business unit section and the business units dashboards in BAM, they were enabled to easily track and trace their business processes. And it ended up saving them quite a lot of time. And we all know that time equals money. And then we have a large retail company in the UK. They told us that one of their problems was that their support group was spending a lot of their time helping business users locate their files. So we offered them BAM, and we helped them configure all of the business units, business processes. We set up the access control and so on, everything that you need to get everything running with BAM, so that their business users could find the statuses of their file transfers and business processes themselves. The interesting thing with this was that some months later, after we set everything up, they actually contacted us and told us that BAM had drastically reduced the number of support tickets, and it made it possible for that company specifically to reassign some of their support staff to other tasks. Now, I want to highlight that the way I see it myself is that a lot of my time, when I myself work as an admin in MFTs, because I do that, I guess a few hours every week, really just to sort of learning the ropes as well, and a lot of those questions that I receive is about file information. I would say that it's almost exclusively. You have a few requests, right, where they want to set up a new file transfer. But other than that, the majority of incidents are about file information and missing files. It could be, where's the file from this partner? Have you sent the file to that customer yet? Could you update me on the status of this business process, and so on. And if I am able to give my business users a dashboard that they can use themselves to find answers about their file transfers related questions, well, I would end up with almost no incidents, right? And for me, from an admin point of view, that sounds pretty good. So let's move on to the demo section and see how we can leverage BAM to provide self-service capabilities for your business. Let me do this and just got to refresh. There we go. Let's see here. So before we start sort of clicking around, I just need to give you a quick explanation here. The way the BAM works is when you do something through your MFT server, perhaps you transfer a file on a weekly basis to a partner. It could be through a scheduled process or something like that, right? Or a customer is sending you files through a user account upload, right? BAM can take this information and it can present it to you. In BAM, instead of calling these file transfers, we call them transactions, since not all transactions actually involve transferring files. We could be encrypting a file, or we could have some sort of automation that just really just cleans up old files, like deletes them from a folder. A transaction can include several actions, though. It could fetch, zip, encrypt, and send a file, right? That's 4 different actions. But as long as they're executed together, BAM will show that as one transaction. So a classic saying is, a transaction is a group of actions carried out together in your MFT. And if I just look at the transactions widget over here in the middle, this is sort of how a transaction would be presented to you, with a sender, with a receiver, with a date stamp, with the status. I mean, this is just the widget. If I needed more information, I could click the date and I will get some sort of transfer information. And as I mentioned, right, one transaction could include several actions. This is what we're talking about. Uploading a file, deleting a file, right? As long as they're a part of the same automation, let's call it that, it's going to be presented as one transaction. It's also important to know, right, because I mentioned sender and receiver here, who is interacting with your MFT server. Now in BAM, again, we use sender and receiver. BAM is designed for business users instead of technical names. You could have, well, let's not go into that tango for now, but I know technical people would choose difficult name for some of us. So, but in BAM, we want to be able to use familiar names. So if we look at this one, finance, private bank, internal user. Okay, maybe that's not the best option. And then we have the MFT environment 1 and 2, right? So these make sense for a business user. Private bank, it could be DHL as an example, not a bank though, but as a classic example for us over here. So in BAM, what we do is you can map technical names to business user friendly ones. And we like to call these entities, if you will, internal or external, doesn't really matter, participants. So a participant is anyone who sends or receives files through your MFT. And it's very important that moving forward from here, we understand transactions and participants. These are two key concepts that we will be familiarizing ourselves with during this demo. And we will use these two in many of the different features that we'll be looking at. Now, just to give you a very brief example and to start off the demo is that currently I'm logged on as an administrator of the tool. So I could be, let's see here, I am the application manager for our MFT. I see everything from here. I see an organization overview of all of the file transfers going on right now. In fact, we're currently looking at 2 MFT instances, right? So we have 2 different instances of the MFT. And so imagine that this could be our production environment in the US, and this could be the production environment over in Europe, right? But we still have this single pane of glass, a unified dashboard, if you will. So I don't have to jump around and look at different sort of locations to find this information. I have this single pane of glass. Now, one thing to notice is that even though, again, I am the application manager, I see 91 failures over here. And by any means, if I log on a Monday morning and I see this, I'll probably start sweating a little bit because I'm worried, okay, so what has actually happened? One key thing that calms me down almost instantly is the fact that we only have 2 issues with participants. That means that these 91 failures are actually only coming from 2 different participants. So if I click the participant number over here, the 2, I can very briefly see that, okay, so if production 1 was the environment in the US, we can see that we have no issues over in the US actually. However, we do have some sort of issues over in Europe, right? So these are based on by row. And if I click this date over here, not this date, this number, I can actually and very fast identify that the issues are with secret agency and sportswear SE. That means that I most likely would know who to reach out to. So it's the business user who is responsible for secret agency or sportswear. Pretty easy, right? Let me go back to the dashboard. Let's see here. Right. Okay. Fairly quick example. So what are all these squares we're looking at? So these are our widgets. Over at the top, we have the status widgets. These are the most important ones. And just to show you, I wouldn't be able to pull it down to the bottom of the page. And these are the 4 most important widgets that we have. Then we have all of the other widgets to say. And we can pick and choose as we please. I can remove this. I can move it over here. I guess I'll just move this one over here. I can just add this one. It doesn't really matter which one I'm adding. What I'm trying to achieve here is I want to mess up my dashboard. And it's very simple. I can reset it if I feel like this is not the dashboard that I'm expecting to have. Do notice though that when I have my sort of crisp dashboard that I want, I have the option to set this as a default dashboard that I want, right? So I don't have to change this every time I log on. It's stored to me. So let me do this and let me reset. I don't want to mess up my nice dashboard that I have. It's actually the out-of-the-box version. Now, about these widgets, one cool thing to notice is they also interact depending on if we have multiple instances or not. So if I look at this data transferred by environments one, I can choose just one environment over here. So we narrow it down. So now we're not looking at the organization overview. We're looking at the production one environment. And this is actually a use case for one of our customers who reached out to us and asked us, oh, we need to track data transferred by participants. And the reason why is that they simply bill their customers by the amount of transfers that they do on their MFT. So this was a way, well, I guess this particular one, they could have hundreds of them, right? Participants, I mean. So this particular one is only showing the top 5, but you also have a report over here that you could check, which is data transfer by participant. So you can have all of that information in the report section. Not going to go too deep into that one right now. Then I actually have my own example, which is, so I mentioned I help a bank over here in Sweden a few hours every week. And they came to me and they said, Richard, we need to upgrade our MFT server and the MFT application that you use. And I told them, oh, sure, you go ahead. All you need to think about is do it during the maintenance windows. And then we realized they don't really have a maintenance windows. So we needed to figure out when is the best time to actually do this. And so very simply, actually, since we have BAM and we have the transaction trend over here, I could see during that conversation with them that, well, at 11 a.m., as an example, that is the window where you have the least amount of transfers every week. That is possibly every day, sorry. That is possibly the best time to do this. And so we agreed, we did the upgrade. It was a success story nonetheless. I guess it was probably a failure or two. I don't really remember, maybe. But at the end of the day, we could use this very simple tool, or sorry, very simple widget to find out the best time to do this upgrade. All right, so that's quickly about the dashboard, customization, click around, play around, interactable, everything. Let's do a common use case. Now, I'm sure we've all had a situation where a file has gone missing and we need to find our MFT admin, if you will. Now, I remember when I was at an offline webinar with a lot of different MFT admins from all over that country. Now, I miss those events. Usually all of these events are online now. One thing we all agreed upon was that the majority of the time we spend in MFTs was about finding a file. I mean, at the end of the day, the expectation is that everything should run on its own on your MFT, right? We really only need to access the tool if something goes wrong or if there's a request for something new. And usually I would have more responsibilities than just covering the MFT. So when a business user is asking me for help, the odds are actually quite against them in the fact that I might be doing something else. I might be busy with some other task, but for them, this file transfer is extremely important, right? And it could also be the other way around. I could possibly be looking for that business user myself, and they are busy with something else. They might be on a meeting somewhere else. So we have a little bit of issues, right? So we need to tighten that gap, sort of fill that gap. So what kind of information can I get when I'm trying to locate a missing file? I'm going to go into this fairly generic, and we'll get a few different sort of examples down the road. But if I go to the transactions all page, sorry, I forgot. I need to do all environments. Otherwise, it's going to look fairly dull. So here we have everything that is going on the current MFT right now with our 2 instances that are running at the same time. Now, if I wanted to find a file, I could have millions of transfers and it'd be quite cumbersome to scroll through this. So we have filtering options, right? If I know what file name I'm looking for, and I'll just be a little bit lazier and do payments. We can do wildcards as well. We never know. Usually you'd have some sort of date stamp in the file name, perhaps. So having the wildcard and I hit apply, now it's going to narrow it down to just private bank. But I mean, if I just wanted to make sure that the receiver in this case would be finance, then I could do receiver and I could do finance, right? Over here, and we hit apply again. So we narrow the search results down to just the transaction that led to finance receiving the file, right? Because they might have asked, so when did finance finance could be a finance application, for example. When did finance application receive the file? Here you go, at 1503. If they wanted more information, it could be something else. And I'll actually reset this because looking at that singular transaction might not be super fun, but let's find one that has, so we have this one over here, which is, we have the status column, by the way. So at a quick glance, we can sort of confirm what has happened to this specific transaction. So we have failure, success, and then we have something called partial success. And I always like to joke about this because you could call it a partial success, you could call it a partial failure, half glass full, half glass empty, right? But we stay positive over here. But what actually happened, right? So if I click the date on this specific one, generally when an automation fails, it failed. We don't need to lie about that. It failed. However, there were successful actions in it. So it does say over here that the job failed, right? The automation failed, the task failed, whatever you like to call it. However, we managed to upload the file to Sportswear. And when we reconnected to rename the file, because that is, I don't know how common it is, to be honest, but I know I've seen a few examples myself where you choose to use transfer suffixes, for example. And the reason to why is you don't want files being stuck and sort of modified while you transfer them. So it makes sense. But so in this case, we failed when we wanted to rename the file. So what else can we find out then? What we can find out is that we get a result row over here. This is grabbed from the MFT, or read from the MFT, sorry. And it's going to tell me that the file that I'm trying to rename to, it already exists. So in a real case scenario, this is not entirely uncommon, is it? That you've sent a report file to a customer, but you use transfer suffixes to avoid any sort of them being like manipulated or changed while transferring, right? However, on the partner side, they might have missed picking up the old report. And so that file is still lying there. So that means it's sort of blocking the new file. So we can reach out to Sportswear SE without contacting any admins, without trying to reach your application manager. We can reach out to Sportswear and we can tell them, oh, you know what? We pushed the file to you, but there seemed to be something wrong on your end. Could you please take a look? Just I'll leave it at that, actually, because we're going to look at similar cases. But just the fact that I, as a business user, have figured out that we have actually transferred the file to the customer, but there seems to be something wrong on their end without talking to anyone. No partners, no support, no application manager of the MFT, right? Just the fact that I went into BAM, I did my searches, and I figured out that there's something wrong here. All right. Now, all right, we're talking about missing files, and I'm giving you a little bit of information. But what we need to understand is the amount of information we can get from this page when it comes to any file transfer questions. Now, it could be a part of a customer support, right? And so I could be a part of customer support, sorry. And a partner is reaching out to us, and they're asking of the status of a file. Maybe did the file arrive on time, for example. I would be able to identify that on this page. The partner could be asking me if we have received the correct amount of files. We have the little icon over here, so we can see file 1 and file 2. Very creative, by the way. And I can tell them we received 2 files at 3:20. The time it takes for me to identify this information is fairly fast, without involving anyone else, no other communication whatsoever. It's just me logging into BAM, fetching the information that I need. And I mean, once I've identified which file I'm looking for, I have the status column over here. So I can see, was it successful or was it not? And if I needed more information, I have the option to deep dive into the dates. I can get more information about each action. And from an admin point of view, just want to highlight, we have the option to present the logs from your MFT as well. But in all, hold on, sorry. But speaking of like any sort of partner relationships and partners asking you for the information, instead of you looking at all of these individual transactions, right? Because we still, if we have millions of transfers over here, we're still going to have to filter and find and do date searches. Oh, by the way, sorry, I forgot to mention, once you've actually created your search, you can create a report out of that search. So you can store that search in a CSV file, which makes sense. It could be, I don't know, someone from your finance team might be asking you about the file transfer statuses from last week, month, whatever there is, right? With a certain partner, for example. Then you can fetch that information in here. But sorry, back to the example that I was talking about. When we're talking about specifically about partners, you don't actually have to go to this page to search around, click around, play around. You can go to participants instead, and you can go to partners and all partners. Now, when you drill down on one of these names, and I'm going to pick commercial bank as an example, you will get a list of transactions that are only related to commercial bank, or all of the transfers that you have exchanged with this partner, right? So this is extremely simple and useful when it comes to getting a quick update on the statuses of your transfers with commercial bank as an example, right? Now, it's not very common though that you just send files ad hoc, like you just send them. Well, I guess you would have your reasons, but usually when you transfer files, they're a part of a business process, and these business processes, they could pop up from some of your teams, your divisions, sectors, whatever terminology you choose to use. It could be a file that is supposed to be transferred, I don't know, to a bank. And once the bank has received the file and done their work, they will send you a reply file that confirms that all was well. So if we think about this for a second, that could mean that we have multiple automations, we have multiple user accounts connecting, uploading, downloading, whatever there is. You want to aggregate these into one box, and you can do that using BAM. So if I'm responsible for a specific business process, right, I would go to the business processes page. I could click, and I mean, you could have hundreds of these, right? So we have the search options over here, but I only need to pick the one that I'm interested in. So for this example, let's say that I am a finance manager and I want information about one specific transfer with private bank and credits. Sorry, it's not actually in a specific transfer. It's a specific business process, including multiple transactions, right? That is the point I'm making. Now, in this example, if we look on these top 4 rows, probably a finance application generates the file, so it's the sender, and once it's generated, it sends the file to your production 1 environment in this case. Eventually, production 1 environment sends the file to private bank. Private bank does some sort of reconciliation or confirms the file or does whatever a bank does with a file, sends it back to us, and the end station for this return file or reply file is the finance application. So we have 4 rows, 4 transactions that is contained within this business process, within this business process box, if you will, really. And the nice thing from this point of view, and I cannot stress this enough, the amount of people, if something goes wrong in this business process, the amount of people that I need to start talking to figure out, without BAM, to figure out where in the process we are, what happened, it could be quite a lot of people, right? Because we have a finance application, so someone is responsible for that application. We have MFT Production 1, which is obviously, again, an application manager, an MFT admin, whatever you'd like to call it. You have the private bank, so that is the partner. You could have someone from support, right, from your internal support team. I know at the bank we have partner support. If private bank has issues, they're going to reach out to partner support. Partner support is going to reach out to me because I'm the application manager. I'm going to have to talk to the application owner for finance. there's quite a lot of people that needs to be involved to figure out where we are in the process and what has happened. But using BAM, and obviously going back to the day before, I can follow the process that we have. Most of the time, these are automated processes as well. So probably the timestamps is going to be this, like, similar to the day before as well. So I have an overview of my very important business processes that I could be having. And you can set how many you want. There's no limitation here. You can create thousands of these. It's up to you how many you want, I guess. And of course, it also gives some sort of freedom. It's not like you actually need these kinds of nice business processes, but you get the point here. Now, so I just need to get a little water. Okay. But these business processes, as I mentioned before, they don't really pop out of thin air either. It's like I was mentioning these potential ad hoc transfers, but they don't really happen, do they? Now, these business processes, they stem from something, and we like to call that business units. And for you, again, sectors, divisions, teams, there's probably a lot of fancy names out there. But for us, it is important that you're able to mirror your organization in BAM so that you can track your business units, file transfers easily, and also separate visibility of who gets to see what, because that is a very common question that we get over here when I sit in all of my different demos and POCs and so on, is how's the access control, right? So again, if we go back to the example that I had before, I am the finance manager and I'm interested in transactions only relating to my business unit. I would go over here to all business units. I am finance manager, so I'm going to click the finance one. And with participants, with business processes, the finance related for the business unit finance, all of that information is going to be aggregated into this box. So I don't have to click around, search around. I don't have to go through the different partners. I have this quick overview of the finance units transfers right now, the latest hour. Now, outside of this, when I create a business unit, automatically BAM is going to create a business units dashboard as well. So sure, you could have this search, but I would argue that maybe from a quick overview point of view, seeing a dashboard specifically for the finance unit, I think it's a lot nicer, right? So we don't have any failures today. All of our SLAs are successful. No participants with issues. This is a dream world, right? So that is business units for you, I guess. All right, so let's say that we have some service level agreements with our partners. And in these service level agreements, that stipulates when files need to be delivered, I guess, or received, depends on the settings. We need to see what can BAM offer when it comes to SLAs, right? Because this is a big one. So first and foremost, let me go back to the organization dashboard. We have the widget for SLA coverage. So we can see our pass versus failures for today. And we have a failures, and that's not a good thing, is it? I go to the expected files. So this is the audit list of all of our SLAs. Again, you could have hundreds of these. You could search. You can do a little bit of filtering with the business units, statuses, and so on, right? But then we have pass versus failures. This is an important data to keep track of. Now, just to give you an example, is the shipping company to logistics, right? And we have a few columns that identifies some key information. We have an expectation, we have the amount of delivered files, last audit, next audit, the status, if it's enabled. We have something called subscribe and my SLAs. This is something that I'm going to highlight in a little bit. But it kind of looks a little bit wonky, to be honest, because we expect 3 files, but we delivered 102 files. So what does it actually say over here? Now we can drill deeper and we can find out the specific condition about this file transfer. So actually we're checking for at least 3 files. That is why we can pass when we have 102 files. and it's expected daily by 11:30. It needs to be an XML file, and I'm expecting it to be an inbound successful transfer, right? Now, one of the things with these service level agreements is that what you probably would have added in here is the expected SLA, the actual SLA. Whereas if this were to fail, 11:30, let's say that it's 11:45 or 2 p.m. or whatever time there is, most likely when you do not pass the SLA, it might become fairly costly for your company. So what we have added, and it's such a silly and great little feature actually, is we have the option to add an SLA warning as well. Because that is one of the comments that I got a long time ago, is that most of the time, let's call ourselves applications managers for now, or MFT admins, if you will. Most of the time, I would get a comment that, why are you only reacting to issues? Isn't it possible to be proactive? And just this simple one line here is a very simple case of where you can actually, on paper, be proactive. Because what BAM is going to do, it's going to read your database and it's going to look for the conditions that we have applied over here. And it's going to ask itself, 3 files, 11:30, 2 hours ahead. So at 9:30, has the 3 files arrived yet? Or been transferred yet, sorry. The XML files, right? And if it's a no, it's going to send me a notification to tell me that this has not yet occurred yet. Not yet occurred, sorry. So it gives me time to react. It gives me 2 hours to sort this issue. Maybe to reach out to logistics, telling them that shipping company has yet to send the file. You might want to reach out to them and check what's up. And that's just a simple example. So it gives you the power, I guess, better control of your SLAs. Now, I'm going to move away a little bit from my admin role here, and I'm going to think from a in BAM you would call them viewers, but I am a business user now, and someone comes to me and they tell me, okay, Richard, it's time, we need to have BAM in our repertoire. And I said, what is that? And then someone explains to me what it is. And then I realized, while they're explaining to me, this is yet another application that I need to have access to. And I mean, just me working at the bank a few hours every week as an admin, I probably still have 7 to 10 different applications and systems and web pages and whatnot that I need to access. And then someone tells me, oh, by the way, we need to add BAM as well. I understand that little pain point. It's not huge, but it's definitely a pain point. So what I want to highlight is, where I'm coming to or going to, is that although BAM is a page that you need to access, you don't actually have to get, you don't have, you, sorry, you can still get the status of your transfers if there is an update that you need without actually having to log on, is my point here. So if I go back to the dashboard, let's say that we created an SLA, I have the option to subscribe over here, right? Very important to understand that this exists. I create a subscription. I have a few options. I can get the organization status overview, which gives me all of the pass versus failures for the past day or week or whatever you choose to specify. SLA, file transfer. So file transfer would be a participant. Business process, we can choose whichever business process that we have. But for this one, I would go with SLA for now. I'm not going to create it, just highlighting that I can create an SLA. I can add that I should be emailed on success, on failures, on warnings, so that I would eventually, when something occurs with this SLA, I get some sort of notification of the pass success, warning, failure. So I don't, as business user, don't actually have to log on to BAM. Now it's not it's not completely unavoidable. I mean, if let's say that it failed, BAM wouldn't actually share the reasons to why it failed. So you would have to go into the system, or you could just send the link to your application manager and they can go and take a look for you, because you would get a link to that references you back to BAM. Now, as a final note, because I see I have some time left, just the dashboard side of things again, because this is something, even though I might be a part of finance, right? I have a few options over here. Yes, I have the business units dashboard for finance. If I wanted to, I can create separate dashboards within finance. So I could create one for Europe, one for treasury, one for Asia, or whatever I want to define as a separate dashboard. And I can click and choose whatever participants and business processes I want within that dashboard. Or maybe that's not enough. We also have the option, I highlighted over on the SLA page that we have my SLA. We have my business units. We have, you guessed it, my participants. And we also have my business processes. What essentially happens is that once I have my access to BAM, I can start going through the different pages that allows it to add my favorites, right? So, and eventually when I go to my dashboard, I'm going to see all of the ones or all of the entities that I've chosen to favorite. So I don't have to click around, I don't have to search around. I have a specific dashboard within my business unit dashboard, external from maybe my own created dashboard that are specific for again Europe or the Nordics or whatever you choose. And I think I am fairly happy with that demonstration. And I guess we'll move on with the slides. Now, the slides don't contain that much more, actually. A very quick general summary of BAM. BAM is a tool that helps maximize investment in your MFT. And I want to highlight that as well, that it's supposed to complement your MFTs, right? So if you have invested in MFTs and you need more visibility, BAM is a very good choice. So it provides visibility to non-admin staff. Obviously, it also gives visibility to admin staff. And it actually helps them, I mean, it helps them with faster problem detection and resolution. Sorry, I skipped a row. And by this, we reduce costs by providing self-service capabilities, right? As I mentioned in the use cases, that you can reassign and rearrange how your teams are set up, really. And as a bonus to myself, because I am an admin in an MFT, reduce workload on admin and support staff. Thank you all for joining. I know that out in the world it's Easter going on, so maybe, but I hope you all have a great weekend ahead of you, and looking forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or thoughts, we have www.accolm.com/BAM for any sort of written information, and you also have sales@accolm.com if you have any questions. Have a good day, everyone.